Why are there so many podcasts about Tottenham? Do I want to know why? They might contain insight, but mostly delusions. If I hear one more, I might die. They don't like Levy and they don't like Enoch. They pine for Moo and Conte.
Hello and welcome back to Poddenham Hotspur, the Spurs podcast all about Spurs podcasts. My name is Iain and I'm joined today by one of the most important people in the Tottenham Hotspur fan podcast community. I'm of course talking about the founder, producer and co-host of the longest running Spurs podcast, Mike Leigh of the Spurs Show. Hi Mike, how are you doing today?
Hi Ian. Oh, what a lovely intro that was. Oh, I'm blushing here. It's too much. Enough. I want to ask you first. I mean, what an idea. Let's do a podcast about Tottenham podcasts.
I know.
I mean, there's enough of them. In fairness, I mean, you can keep going for years now. I mean, there's so I get people, friends and all that go. Have you heard? I said, most I haven't heard of now because there's so many.
There's 115.
Is there?
Yeah,
115. What, like regular ones?
If you include YouTube and
Wow.
audio-only podcasts, those that are putting out content on a weekly or at least monthly basis, which I know is a bit woolly, but some people don't record.
I thought you were going to say like 30 or 40. 115.
115.
I wonder if there's anyone out there that listens to all of them.
That's supposed to be me, but the secret is that you just can't. I'm strategizing
115.
week to week.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, and we're covering every facet of Spurs. You've got tactics pods, you've got now nostalgia focus pods with our sort of mutual contact. Gareth Dace has just started.
Yes, I've just done one with him, yeah.
And of course, the Spurs Show leans into the nostalgia of the Spurs fan community quite heavily. But there's international pods, you've got pods about pods. It's kind of crazy. What is it that you think about Spurs that makes people so obsessed and want to sit down and record podcasts every week?
Oh wow!
And so many.
We're such a soap opera of a club. I think that's what it is. And maybe I'm sure there's no one listening out there that's not a Tottenham fan. What the hell are you listening for? But you never know. And I just think there's something about our club that the sort of largely glorious failure over the years. And I think therefore there's something to talk. I mean, it would be very boring supporting a kind of Man City and Liverpool and sort of perennial winners. I do occasionally because I have a company that does other club podcasts. So I listen to some of those and I've sort of smirked to myself going, you think you've got problems? You're complaining you only won 3-1 at the weekend or something, that kind of thing. It's unbelievable. There's something about this club. I'm always fascinated as well with overseas fans. And I remember years ago, I can't remember, it was ESPN, it was some website, and they did something for American fans about which Premier League team should you support. You might remember this article.
Yep,
so it had all these things, and if you want, like a romantic club, that believes in great football, whatever, and I think we came out top. So maybe that's why we're attracted to, we've attracted a lot of overseas fans and American fans. Maybe that's something to do with it.
I filled it out, and I think I got Newcastle the first time I went.
Oh, really?
Back. Yeah, I went back and redid it and got Spurs.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of overseas fans, and in fact, I imagine you have a lot of overseas fans.
I think so. I don't really. I never really look at these. You get these. You can check your analytics and all this sort of stuff. I must admit, I rarely look at them, but I think. Yeah, I think we do. We certainly did when I sort of last checked.
I imagine so. With the sort of listener base that you have in general, there must be a sizable chunk of either expats who live overseas and
Yeah, maybe. I mean, when we started, there wasn't many podcasts. Certainly not on individual clubs. And I remember, when we started, we were, because there's nothing to do with the quality of the show, just the lack of shows out there. We were regularly top 10 sport podcasts around the world because there wasn't many shows, and there was there wasn't that many doing individual clubs. We're up against the Guardian, Football Weekly, this one, that one, this BBC one, whatever. So I think maybe that has something to do with it, that we we started such a long time ago, and still, God knows why, continue. I think it's 19th season, something like that. God, next year, it's like that. It's unbelievable, you know. And I mean, you know, some of the time I kind of think about, do we need to do a show? Can I just dig out an old one and play that? Because it's the same. It's the same things we moan about. It's the same things. I mean, particularly now, after we all watched the game last night away at Monaco, and we're all saying the same things. And it was funny, that stat came up. This is our first 0-0 in 125 games. And I thought, yes, that was that awful night against Milan under Conte, where we bored everyone to sleep and didn't even look like we wanted to win. Nothing really changes. There's something in the DNA of this club that hopefully one day will change. But anyway, I think that's the answer why, you know, people may be supporters for so long.
Everybody, Spurs threaten us with changing their DNA every now and then it seems to revert to type. But I'm gonna go back up to the top of my list of questions and just bring you back to sort of a grounding in your history. There was an amazing top 10 Tottenham episode that you recorded with Theo.
That's right, yes.
Show, that I would recommend anybody who's interested in sort of Mike's history with Spurs. You go back and listen to that, and you know it's so good. There was so many nice little anecdotes and stuff in there. You know, so you are, you know, from a Spurs family, both sides.
That's right, both sides.
Edmonton,
well, certainly grandparents or great grandparents had a factory in Edmonton. So I mean, my dad was born in South Tottenham. So it was, no. I mean, I've had no choice. You know, my poor kids now, who sadly, one of my daughters particularly really has the bug, and I already feel sorry for her that she's going to have this as well. So it's 1, 2, 3. They're fourth. I want to work this out. Fourth or fifth generation, because I think my great grandparents used to go in the probably 1910s, 1920s, which is incredible. Because that was the time. That was your local team. You watched your local team. You didn't think, I'm going to be a Man United fan or whatever. That was your local team. So I think that's sort of where it came from, really. I didn't really have a choice, to be honest.
Many of us don't. I'm amazed at the Spurs fans who do. And they're always the same type of person. You know, the Spurs fans who've come to us later in life, they're all dreamers. They're all kind of not football hipsters, but they don't quite want to support a super popular, super successful team, but they don't want to be losing every week. Yeah. There's just something, there's a commonality between them, especially.
Well, a lot of people you get when you ask them who don't come from an area, why do you support whoever? You know, invariably they go, well, I was in the playground, so Liverpool were the team winning everything then, or Manchester United. Yeah. You know, we had it in the early 80s, which I remember when I was 13, 14. It was fantastic, but it's been a while. We've been like perennial winners, but I think now with kids, they support players more than clubs. You know, I love. You know, I live in Portugal, and it's like, you know, Ronaldo, whatever, and they'll support any club that Ronaldo is playing for. So it is changing that respect, that you'll support players rather than clubs.
It'll loop back. It can't stay with players forever, but we'll see. So zooming forward, we're just going to skip over everything else that happened in your life and bring you to 2006, 2007. Right. Where were you at? Who were the people who were encouraging you or supporting you in creating the Spurs Show with Phil Cornwell?
Yeah, no. What happened was my business partner Paul Myers, who runs Playback Media with us, he had an office in Soho. And he'd converted a meeting room into a little radio booth because he'd got the British broadcaster who covered a lot of football at Radio 5, Danny Baker, was going to do a show with him. Danny Baker then was at BBC London, and Paul convinced him to kind of leave BBC London, do some internet breakfast show, which didn't quite work out for various reasons. So he had this little space, and he was a friend of mine. He sort of said, anything else we can do in here? And my background then was a talent agent. So one of my clients was Phil Cornwell, who I was a huge fan of. Anyway, anyone out there, maybe if you're American, you never heard of him, go to YouTube and check out Stella Street, Stella, where he does all his old impressions. It's like a normal suburban street in England where it's just celebrities live there. It's very, very funny. Him and the late, great John Sessions. And Phil was a massive Tottenham fan. Whenever we met up, we used to talk about Tottenham. And I just said to him one day, should we do a show about Spurs and you can crowbar on some of your impressions? I'll help you. I'll be like sidekick. I'll sort of rein you in because he'll go off on tangents and we've got a certain amount of time we can record. And it just started from there. And it just happened to be that time when we had Ramos. Yeah, was it Ramos there? Yes, because it was 2000 League Cup 2008. So it was the period of sort of one day Ramos, and then Ramos leaving and Harry Redknapp taking over, who obviously is great comedy material, especially for an impressionist. And Phil was, you remember, used to sort of start the show like being interviewed as the then manager. And it just spiraled from there, really. And again, I suppose through contacts in the industry, I just managed to get, again, because there was so few podcasts and we were in central London, I just managed to get a lot of people like Paul Whitehouse on it. And then I can't remember when we started getting ex-players and how, but we started getting ex-players, and the club were quite useful. We used to do an award every year, like Spurs Show Player of the Season, and we used to be allowed to go down to the training ground and give out this award. It was a bit of a kiss of death. I think we had like Kabul one year, who then got completely injured. Gomez, the goalkeeper, who then disappeared. It was like it was like a running joke. You don't want to win the Spurs Show Player of the Year because you'll never get seen again. And so it just, and I think going back to the top, we were discussing the top, there's just less Spurs podcasts then. So I think if you were a Spurs fan, you wanted to hear podcasts and you knew how to download podcasts from your, iPod or whatever. Fortunately, you were kind of stuck with us because there wasn't many others. Now you've got, as you said, an incredible choice of what you want to hear about and sort of the demographic and age of the presenters and stuff. And we've just decided over the years, why try and change things for stuff which is an absolute labour of love? Talking about, I know we moan about them, but talking about an absolute club that we adore. So I don't think it's really changed much over 19 years. Well, obviously we've had different guests and we find new guests we think are quite good, and but we have a lot of regulars, and it's just seems to work over the years.
Of course, there was such a barrier to entry for recording a podcast in 2007 because you needed a good microphone, you needed a space to record, and you needed to have guests who were physically together, of course.
Absolutely.
And of course, that energy, especially those early episodes when you have, Phil and Paul Whitehouse in the same room together, bouncing off each other, there's a real vibrancy and energy that
definitely
you must work hard, or you must be mindful of now. In kind of an internet
obviously COVID finished it. We moved to various studios over the years. We ended up running King's Cross, which was quite good because it was near the underground station. But when then COVID happened, I sort of said to everyone, should we go back to that? We'd now started doing them on Zoom. And a lot of people went, oh, there's no money in podcasts, really. I mean, unless you're one of the massive ones. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were like, oh, I'll just do it from home. And it did make things easier, especially getting ex-players who were before, how much? Is there a taxi? No. Is there any money? No. It was just easier to get people to say, we're recording now 3:00 in the afternoon. It wasn't, you weren't sort of straitjacketed to a time and a place. It's made things much, much easier, certainly. But I miss that spontaneity you have when you're actually in a room with other people. Definitely. I think you're absolutely right. They are always a better way of doing it. Maybe we'll go back to doing it that way, but I just think we've all kind of moved on with technology now. It's just much easier this way.
And of course, the wider net that you can cast in terms of the guests that you get on. You've got somebody out on tour, or you've got, somebody's in Portugal, right? You can't always necessarily always do it. And I think people are adjusted to knowing that people aren't in the same room for these recordings.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, things.
And I think the sound quality. I mean, I still when I do dip in to certain, I still can't believe how some of them the sound quality is awful. And you're like, really? What's the matter with you? Is it somewhere they're going, this sounds awful? I just find something really quite difficult to listen to.
Yeah, I try my best, but oh my goodness, it is. And you got to remember, so many of these, 115 Spurs podcasts, a lot of people without media training, without, sort of audio processing or anything else. And there's various different things you can pay for, but like you said, you're not making money off of it. So
I don't know how people get, maybe they don't care, how people even get listeners now. I mean, we still do okay because we've been going so long, but my company, we used to do a Liverpool podcast, first with a guy called Iain and Ashley Blaker, who was a sort of stand-up and a writer. And then for various reasons, people stopped doing it. And I was like, oh, then someone, a good mate of mine in Dubai said, oh, I know a radio presenter who works in Dubai, who is married to the granddaughter of Bill Shankly, massive Liverpool fan. I went, oh, amazing, let's do it. But to start with like no massive marketing budget, I don't think we had an ex-player on the first show, but we were getting like single figure listeners. And I just said, what's the point? What's the point of doing this when literally no one is listening? So I think now, although it's much easier to do podcasts, it's so much more difficult now to actually get listeners because you're up against so much. I don't know about you. I have my sort of favorites on my phone, and about 90% of them each week, I never get time to actually listen to, and especially if it's a time sensitive show. If you want to go back to moan about the game a few days ago, and once that's passed, you go, well, there's no point going back to that now, and that's, unless it's like, I've got an ex-player, and that's why we always started doing these monthly ex-player specials. I just thought it's a lovely archive to have that people can dip in, and, luckily for us, when people write, Spurs books on whatever era, they do use us as a kind of, research tool, which I think is lovely, that these old interviews with, well, a lot of them sadly who've now passed away, ex-players, are still out there forever.
Yeah, sadly, it's not enough to just be a good Spurs podcast nowadays. You need some kind of hook that makes people say this is why they should listen to you, as opposed to anybody else. Or you need to play the game and go on every single show that you can and talk to every single person and advertise widely and hope you get lucky. But it's kind of sad. But at the same time, we do it because it's a good opportunity to get together with interesting people. It's a hobby for many people, and they see people like you doing a really good job and think, I'd like to have a go.
But also, I think maybe it's got to do with, I don't know. I don't know where all the listeners are. But if you live in a far-flung place or a quiet place, and you don't have many Tottenham mates, and you don't go to games, I think there was a whole thing a while back. Bloody social media. Oh yeah, you're not a real fan. Whatever. No, we talked about David Harris earlier, who teamed us. This is strange. The dedication of getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to watch Tottenham lose another game is far more than traveling 20 minutes on the tube to the stadium, as far as I'm concerned. So I think maybe certain podcasts help people who don't have that Tottenham support base that you have, which is invariably meeting before or after a game at the lane, in the pub or whatever. We do now. I live in Portugal. It's not 100% official yet, unless Tottenham revoke it. But we're becoming the official Lisbon Spurs supporters club. There wasn't one in Lisbon in Portugal, which I was amazed by. So we found a local bar, and it was great last night. There was about, it's not much, like 12 of us, ranging from the age of 23 to 69, men and women. And again, the highlight of the evening wasn't watching Tottenham because it was awful, but just meeting people for the first time and what's your Spurs story, and having that kind of camaraderie and stuff, which I think, so many people are just online the whole time. It was so nice to have that.
Same. I'm the chairperson of my local supporters club. Okay. The OSC community is so it's so supportive, and it creates this conduit for people who are geographically isolated, and suddenly they turn up and they say, "Wow, I didn't realize so many Spurs fans live here or in Lisbon or whatever," and it's amazing, great. But
so where are you? Which one's your one?
So mine is Montgomery County Spurs. We're just outside of Washington DC.
Okay.
Yeah, so we get a lot of people who live in the DC suburbs.
Right.
And usually travel into DC, but they come to see us instead. And yesterday,
amazing.
Again,
how long have you been doing that for?
So the club started in, I want to say 2021. I took over last year.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it's been good. And it's so exciting to see things like your videos from the Europa League final going up on the Spurs official, YouTube channels and stuff like that. It's a real buzz.
Do you use the same bar? How's it work with the bar that you use? Or do you
we have the same bar
fighting over the TV screen? Or
no, we have a great host, Tony at St. Troy Brewing here in Maryland. We are the only bar there. He named a beer after White Hart Lane. We have a mug club. There's all little things you can do. We've decorated the bar. Yeah, it's our space. And if
That's amazing, because we're using, the sort of ubiquitous Irish bar that you get in every single town around the world, and it's mobbed, particularly for rugby as well. But it's on Champions League nights when there's 3 or 4 other English clubs and the local club playing. But last night was great. We got the big screen and the little alcove with the proper sound. I thought, this is not, but everybody started a few weeks ago. This is good. We're taking this place over a bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's when the singing starts. That's when you got to be a
we
little
haven't
obnoxious.
There's been nothing to sing about yet. We haven't got there yet.
Exactly.
Cheering and singing another 0-0 draw. Not there quite yet.
Yeah, wait until the North London derby next month. That'll be fun.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you talked earlier about looking at listener metrics. I actually went back a few episodes ago and looked at listener metrics for Reddit. So there's an annual survey every year that they run, and they talk about their favorite podcasts, their favorite players, all that type of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at the Spurs Show sort of age demographic and how long they've been fans for, and it's a small sample of a subsection of the Spurs community. But I was surprised at how many younger and newer fans listen to your show.
I'm surprised as well.
If you look at the age sort of distribution of others, it skews a little older, but you seem to be, you, the Fighting Cock, and Alasdair Gold seem to be almost like entryway.
Really? I didn't know that. I just assumed, because not so much the guest, but because of how I am and Theo and our reference points, I just naturally assumed, therefore, listeners would be kind of our age rather than younger. Because we don't. I don't know. It's nice to hear, because I always joke with Theo. I was like, if we keep doing this, one day all our listenership will be dead, and then what do we do? So it's nice to hear there are younger people listening to the show.
Yeah, and I think that you talked about the supporters clubs being an important way to bring people together. I also think it's really interesting that podcasts in some ways have filled the role that our dads did, or our mums and dads did. Of introducing us to what's important, the DNA of the club, the history of the club, names that people hear about, especially on the Spurs Show. You have all these ex-players that folks might have heard about, but don't really have a way into learning about them. And I think that what I like is that those live shows, the player focus shows, and obviously the on-running history sort of that you're now doing, I think is really important to the community.
Yeah, I mean, that was about going back to being this kind of archive that's kind of there, when we're all long gone. The fact that we've been so lucky to have, Jimmy Greaves, Alan Gilzine, these are players that are no longer with us, but we have them being interviewed, talking about the career. And again, you forget not so much the more modern players, but certain players that we've had certain players who, more obscure ones, who have never really been asked about their Tottenham career. We have a very small little Patreon thing where, but again, I'm sort of doing less on that now, just a sort of daily bulletin show and stuff. But on that, that gave me the excuse to get more obscure players that I thought, we can't do, because when we were doing the live shows, we were charging £10 a month, and that would get you and a couple of mates into these little shows in a pub. And I kind of thought, on the bigger shows, when we still do occasionally end of season, Christmas shows as well. So these are players that I thought, we're not going to sell 200 tickets for so and so, but to hear their story and how moved they seem to be, that we kind of remembered them, especially from the 60s and 70s, and that's been really pleasing to do. And again, the other thing as well, we started doing, I didn't want to, during pre-season, I didn't want to sort of do shows to talk about nothing. There's nothing going on. But we kind of stopped them for now. Again, to kind of run out of guests, we're doing these top 10 Tottenham shows that you mentioned. And it was just lovely to hear people's personal stories about key games. And I kind of thought after a while, obviously we're going to get that night in Amsterdam's coming up again, the same goals, listen to the same clips, but everyone's stories of that JFK moment, where you were and how it was different for you. It's so nice to hear.
Yep, and I think it's important again for making people feel connected and reflecting back on their own history with Spurs.
Yeah. I think you're right.
The live shows are really cool because they tap into that sort of rich history that football in general has, of getting an ex-player to your local sort of working men's club or whatever.
Yeah.
To come in and do it, but you would be geographically locked again, but you've expanded that to a global audience, and
Yeah.
that's obviously very cool. Do you have a favourite ex-player who's come on?
I mean, I think because it was a running thing on the show many, many years ago, Where's Gilly? Alan Gilzean, for those who don't know, was a Tottenham striker in the late 60s and 70s with a bald head. He was the partner for Jimmy Greaves, the G-Men. Then when Greaves left, him and Martin Chivers. And there was a whole book in search of Alan Gilzean about he was just one of these players that just literally disappeared. And when I bumped into ex-players, Where's Gilliam? No one's heard from him. And it became this running joke on the show until eventually someone said to me, and I can't remember who it was, it might have been Paul Coit, who obviously is the announcer at Tottenham, said, "Oh, Pat Jennings is in touch with him." "What? Pat Jennings is in touch with him?" "Well, no, he lives in Weston-super-Mare, which is in the sort of down south, the West Country. And oh no, he'll come up and do it." And there was this moment. It was at Dingwall's club in Camden, and I remember going somewhere to pick him up. And obviously, he was an old guy. I mean, as I said, I don't know how old he was. He passed away. It was certainly in his late 70s, I imagine. And him just showing up, and I had no idea what it was going to be like, because in my head, he's literally disappeared in the 80s. No one's kind of seen him. I don't know what he's going to be like, what condition. But he was absolutely pin sharp and remembered every goal. Very self-deprecating, very funny. So that was an amazing one. Obviously, Jimmy Greaves, because when we had Greaves, I don't know. It was he might have done a private sort of. It was certainly one of the last interviews he ever did, if not the last one, certainly in front of Tottenham fans. So that was very, very moving. And then last year or the year before, we managed to get Paul Gascoigne, which was extraordinary. And that was just a great night, just to be with him and just see again the love. And I remember one of the first ones we did. No, I know. Tell a lie. I remember going to White Hart Lane when they did this sort of Hall of Fame, inducted them, and I got invited years ago. I think they were just inducting in the 61 team. And I remember watching old grown men who are now, well, God, if it was that's 60 years ago, in their 80s, who maybe couldn't get a ticket, couldn't afford a ticket, were hanging outside wherever the function was with their autograph books. It was like Beatlemania. "Oh, there's a fullback. There's Peter Baker. There's Peter Baker." And it was all, and I just thought, this is incredible. These are grown men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. But to them, even now, all these years on, these are their absolute heroes. And that's what I love about football and Tottenham particularly, that, my God, when a legend comes back, we had it, whether you call him a legend, but when Eric Dyer, the game yesterday, when Dyer waved to the Tottenham fans, and that's what I think sets apart a lot of the club Tottenham and our fans through many other clubs. That, we love a legend, we love people who just give their all for the club, and if we can pay tribute to them in certain ways. There's still a few players I'm still trying to get who I think the fans would just love to be able to tell them, "You mean so much to us," And again, you see, especially more recent players are so cosseted from the world and certainly from the fans. When they do come back slightly older, and they might have done a bit of media work, but when they come back in a room of, some events, 200-300 Tottenham fans, and you've got people coming up to, "Do you realise you don't know, you got me through this, you got me through that goal, that moment." It's lovely to see their faces. Some of them look completely frightened, want to get the hell out there, but most are really chuffed and really moved. And then a lot of ex-players, if they continue following Tottenham, they become us. They become other fans. You listen to someone like Mickey Hazard, who comes on our show a lot and been on various shows and all that. He talks like a true fan. And that's what I love. This is the guy that played for Tottenham.
There's something about Spurs. You got Sandro in more recent years, who seems to have become a bigger Spurs fan than I have.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And of course, it's really nice that you have players like Danny Rose, who is
that was amazing.
Recent memory playing for Spurs, and he wants to come on and engage with the fans and engage with you.
And I was really wary about that one because someone gave me his number, and I messaged him very nicely, and he came back with, "How do you get my number? Who the hell was it?" And I thought, oh my God, this is really whatever. And I can't remember. But will you do this? And we eventually got him, and he lives up north now. It's Harrogate or Leeds, I can't remember. And again, once meeting him and finding out whatever, he's a very shy guy. He's very shy, very quiet, very unassuming. I mean, the interview, you see how he builds up and tells some extraordinary stories never heard before. But he was genuinely touched by the love and affection in the room. One thing I just thought about, because I heard yesterday, When I moved to near Lisbon, on 2 occasions I saw someone and I went, "Oh my God, that's the best Moussa Dembele lookalike I've ever seen." And I looked him up and he was playing wherever. But yesterday I found out, no, he lives here. He lives nearby. Moussa Dembele is a neighbour somewhere. And I want to bump into him again and say, "Will you come to the show? Come to our supporters club?" Yeah, he's somewhere. He is here.
Yeah, my dream is that I bump into like Clint Dempsey or somebody around here.
Yes.
You know? And I pass him a pamphlet or something.
Yeah, too
You talk
right.
about Danny Rose being shy. How do what kind of work goes into making these players feel comfortable sharing their stories, being so
What is it?
vulnerable?
It's a good question because a lot of them, if you play so much football, we've had a few when you go, "What about that time?" No, don't remember it. No memory of that. And you go, "Okay, fair enough." Some people don't really follow football after they retire, but so I try and, when I write the questions, I try and go chronologically, knowing if I see them glazing over to quickly move on. And it depends if they are a player that actually won stuff with Tottenham or not. Invariably, most aren't. I mean, I worked out in the 49 years I've been watching Tottenham, we've won stuff in 7 or 8 of those seasons. You just think, any other walk of life, sign here. Will you give up 49 years of your life, but I'm going to give you this every 7 years? You go, "No, what's the matter with you?" Of course not. But that's what we all do unwittingly. So it depends on the era, it depends on the player. Again, obviously we tend to get older players who have won things, and there's not that many in recent years. So you think, "Oh, they're going to tell the same stories." But invariably they have that, and they've been together and been on other shows, and they tell a story. It might not be their story, but they heard it from someone else. But invariably there's enough. I just love hearing the behind the scenes, what was going on in the dressing room, or no one knew this, but I was injured and this and that and that. Stuff that if they haven't, maybe they're not big enough, they've never written their autobiography. So maybe therefore there's stories they've never had the chance to regale. That's what I really like.
And of course, next year in 2026, you're hosting a 3-day event in Portugal where people
Hoping
can...
to.
Hoping to? Okay.
Well, if we manage to sell enough tickets, I had this idea. There's again, if you're from England and Ireland, you'll know that the Algarve, which is the southern, is a very big holiday destination with lovely hotels and golf courses and all that. And I just thought, because it's the 35th and 45th anniversary of the 81-91, wouldn't it be just a dream to get players together? And secured them now. Whether we sell enough tickets, I don't know. I hope so. That would be a lovely thing, just an excuse to just hang out poolside with these absolute heroes. I still pinch myself when one of them will call up over a show and all that, and I just go, look who's calling me. It's it's Steve Perham, the captain, or whatever. I still very childlike when those sort of things happen.
Yeah, hopefully that comes off. I mean, what kind of work goes into planning an event like that? Like, how do you build up the confidence to say, "Okay, we could make this work"?
Well, that one's been a tricky one, but again, certain players have the ear to all the other players from that era. So once you get one, they go, "Okay, Mike, yeah, that's a good idea. Let me ask around." Or they go, because from doing the podcast, I've got a few phone numbers now. I just ask them, and I think if that happens, I've been to enough kind of Spurs events whereby the players are corralled together, are sat on, like, let's say it's a corporate thing, sat on different tables, and you realise they haven't seen each other for a long time, and they don't get to see each other because as they sit at the table, there's a queue of people who want to take selfies and have autographs taken, and they never get to see their mates. So the one thing I said to the players is, I will make sure you will have time just to the players, a lunch or whatever, where we no fans, hang out, catch up, and that I think has swung it for a lot of them. Oh, great! I'm not just going to be doing selfies for 3 days and whatever. So to give them a bit of time for themselves to hang out with each other.
That must really help with that understanding and trust in terms of getting players to give their time to you and to come on to the live shows and everything else. That's a sort of fascinating insight. And I mean, I was looking at it purely from a consumer perspective of it'd just be wonderful to have several of them up on a panel at the same time. But no, you're right. Just to give them that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. We did one. We did one. 2022, 50th anniversary of the 72 UEFA Cup win. and it was at the 100 Club on Oxford Street, one of the oldest clubs still open. And we had Chivers, Jennings, Pratt, Mullery, Perriman. Was it 5 or 6? 5 or 6 players, I can't remember. Maybe I'm missing one out. And it was lovely. And what we did, we showed goals. So it was lovely to watch them watching a game. And that's what I found from a contact in Italy, the away leg. Everyone's seen the semi-final AC Milan. Perriman scored 2, but no one had seen I think it was a 1-1 draw in Italy. There was no commentary on it, but it was Mullery. Everyone, you read Mullery, great goal, and he hadn't seen, because no one has in this country, to watch Mullery see this goal that he hasn't seen since the day he scored that goal 50 years ago was unbelievable, because it was never shown on. I don't think it was shown on English TV at the time. So moments like that are lovely. And then what we did that night, because there was 5 of them, 5 players to pay, to see any money back, we went up the road. There was a more expensive ticket. There's a club called the Groucho Club, which is like a sort of lovey media members club, and I managed to get a private dining room there. There was about 12 Tottenham fans with dinner with them as well, just sitting in a tiny room with all the Christmas decorations. And it was lovely for fans to have that opportunity, where it's not a sort of Tottenham corporate thing where it's, 500 quid a ticket or something, where you just go, well, I can't afford this. Yeah. It's just nice to be able to do that occasionally.
So moving on from players, you've also hosted sort of folks from across the entertainment world, no doubt facilitated by your day job in talent management, right? What do you look for in a guest to come onto the Spurs show? Obviously, the first and foremost, they have to be a Spurs fan, but is there a chemistry? Is there a connection that you're looking for?
Well, I don't do any pre-chats with them. I normally, you hear, oh, I've just found out so-and-so's a Spurs fan. And then you go online and he might be somewhere him or her has talked about it and seems passionate. There's a couple I've tried to get, unable to get. One I've wanted to get, and he lives in America now. Salman Rushdie is a Tottenham fan.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Salman Rushdie is a Tottenham fan. And I've got his number of his son somewhere. And I was like, any chance your dad, whatever, still trying. The other one, whose agent turned me down, and there's a great series at the moment on Netflix called The Black Rabbit. Jude Law, big Tottenham fan, the actor Jude Law. And because I used to see him at Spurs, I used to see him in the 90s or whatever, going to Spurs with one of his kids. So I really tried to get him, but I had to go through his agent, who just, obviously no money in the agent, just went, Jude doesn't like sharing his football, whatever. Whether he thought, loads of Arsenal fans wouldn't like his films anymore, I've no idea. But it was like, no, it's very his supporting Tottenham is very private to him. Is it really private? I mean, was it embarrassing in some way? I don't know. There's a couple I've tried to get. There's a couple I've tried to get and unable. I'll keep trying. There's a few ex-players that I've spoken to, Berbatov directly, but he was like, trying to. It seems to be the UK more and more. Berbatov love to get, and I've tried for long now to get Defoe and Keane.
That'd be amazing.
That's 2 that I'd love to try and get in at some stage. I think they'd be great people to interview.
I'll remember this the next time I'm nervous about sending somebody an email asking them to come onto my pod, that you're reaching out to Salman Rushdie and Jude Law.
Exactly. You've got to ask.
So somebody else who's sort of instrumental in the success of the Spurs show would be Theo Delaney. First appeared as a guest before becoming a co-host. So, talk to me about your relationship and what he brings.
Oh, see, I was trying to remember in the car today because I knew you'd ask me about Theo. I can't remember where I met Theo, where it came about. Maybe he'd certainly already done the 125 anniversary videos, documentaries for Tottenham, which was 2007. So around the same time, whatever 1882 plus 125 is, 2000, around that kind of era. So maybe we got him from that. I knew his brother Sam, who's a West Ham fan, quite well through work, and then he, because Theo's background is like a director, commercials and various things. And I remember about 2008 or 9, I can't remember. There was a TV campaign for a betting company called Betfair. And it was called Betfair's Front Room. We're going to get 5 real fans in a room talking about football. And it ran for about a year. So I don't know, maybe he obviously did me a favour. I was the Spurs fan. There's a friend of mine called Michael Smiley, who's a very good actor and various stuff out there, a lot of films, who's a big Man United fan. There was an Arsenal fan, a Stoke City fan, and a guy called Iain who was a Liverpool fan. And it was great fun because it was me and Theo, and obviously when they're changing the cameras, we're just talking Tottenham. And we were together the night we won in Manchester to qualify for the Champions League for the first time. We were shooting one of these videos. So that was lovely to be with someone. Couldn't be there. He stopped the filming. He stopped the film and said, "We're going to watch the game now." He had the power to go, "No, I'm just stopping the filming now." And that was good fun. So we sort of knew him from back then. And then when Phil Cornwell said to me, "I don't think, again, this is pre-COVID, I can't do this week in, week out." He moved outside London, so he was commuting in to do it. His kids were quite young, and he just went, "I can't keep doing this anymore." I thought, "Oh, should we just knock this on the head now then?" And I suddenly thought, it's a shame, I enjoy doing it, and people seem to enjoy it. So that's when I sort of got Theo in. I sort of said, "Look, I can't. I think people would be absolutely sick of my voice every week. Can you come in and do some of them?" I think we kind of do 50-50 now. And Theo's probably more enthusiastic than I am on the show. He's very enthusiastic. And I think he's great. And Theo is happy to go on. He goes on a lot. You talked again at the top of the show about going on other things. He'll go on Talk Sport and Radio 5 and this radio and that radio and talk about Tottenham, and still loves doing it as well. So hopefully he'll continue loving to do it, and we'll continue for a bit longer.
And of course, you're both so important in some way shaping the cultural identity of the fan base. You've got Theo out there creating work for the club, the Goodbye White Hart Lane video.
That was incredible because he was the creative director of Fairhill White Hart Lane, but obviously working with the club, I imagine, was quite difficult. So well done to him. He was very secretive about everything. He literally, I don't think he even told me. And I don't know how I found out after, but he was very, very secretive. Even to this day, when I ask him now on the show and his top 10 Tottenham, he'll tell a few stories about what it was like behind the scenes. But to do that was amazing, and from Theo, I've met more and more amazing Tottenham fans who knew him. And that's another thing, almost going back to the sort of overseas supporters club. You just meet other people, come along through this one, that one, meet my mate here, or you'll get on. And, you have the universal language of Tottenham Hotspur to talk about. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So Spurs fans have had plenty to be frustrated with over the years. We talked about it a little bit, plenty of things to be joyous about. Have you at all noticed a change in how Tottenham supporters express their frustrations on your podcast, on other shows, online?
I don't have the time to listen to a lot of the others, to be honest. Not for any other reason, just time. Obviously, the surge of social media has made it far more toxic, and it's still incredibly removed from, I wouldn't say the real fans, because that's unfair, but it's incredibly removed from the fans that who are lucky enough to attend home games. And then it's even different to the fans who have the dedication to attend away games, who, because they've got the loyalty points, someone they know, will travel all around the world. And again, we're so lucky to have on the show Danny Fenton, Dominic Powell, Lee Bramsell, who literally go home and away every game. And, I'm off to, the North Pole now. And so that dedication, you do it for love. And I just think we have a Twitter X, but we have a very vociferous Facebook group. I don't know how many people are on it now, actually. I can't remember. Just check. But it gets very toxic there. And I'll get people as the administrator, can you boot this one off and this one off? And there's people that look like they're on all day moaning about the club. And you think, come on, get a life. Get on with your what else you're doing. I know it. Look, I'm sure you're the same. If Tottenham loses the weekend, it ruins the weekend. I don't want to go out on a Saturday or Sunday. It just ruins it. So we all have that as a football fan. And I think sometimes it's great. You can find other fans in certain areas and have this sort of support group. But I just think maybe it's human nature to moan and criticize more than praise. And, the whole Levy out brigade and, this one out, this manager out. And now there's a bit of not so much Frank out, but moaning about how we're doing. And I try and keep away from it, but being an admin of the social media groups means I have to dip in because someone's, reported someone. So I have to go in and read it and go, well, that's very racist. That's going whatever it is,
Oh my
whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have the social media groups, I don't think I'd look at any of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. We always say on the show, transfer windows. There wasn't. You just literally picked up the paper the week before the season started and a little thing in the Daily Mail. Oh, Tottenham have signed someone called Steve Archibald from Aberdeen. Oh, wonder what he's going to be like. And you go to a pre-season game, whoever. Oh, there he is. And that would be it. You look at the whole Eze affair and is he coming and all this. People like suicidal over it. Come on. Have a... I don't know. It is strange, but it's not just football. Social media blows up, politics, whatever. It's not a nice place. Largely, it has a lot of benefits, and it's great to find new people and new interests. But it's a bit of a sort of echo chamber as well. And as I said, it's completely removed, largely from. And it's changing though. I'd say largely from people, especially away from home. Home. I mean, people said about the Villa game on Sunday that it was a bit of a dead atmosphere. But Tottenham has always been like that. If the football you're watching isn't great, and people go, get behind your team, come get behind your team, it's very, very difficult. You don't know people's lives, the journey there, to sort of, come on, let's start chanting all that, but there's nothing really to get you going.
Absolutely.
And I think it's unfair. And obviously now it's become much more corporate, much more expensive. The average man, woman in the street can't afford these tickets anymore. And whole new cultures. When Sun was there, the amounts of South Korean fans was wonderful to see, but they were largely quite quiet and very polite, just applauded and whatever. So it's changed. When you go away, you still have that, what's the word, almost sort of, I don't know, sort of, not so much vitriolic, but you'll still get that kind of animalistic kind of tribal support that you invariably get in football over the years, which is exciting and fun and can be funny, can be scary at times. But there's something about going to away games still, which I've always kind of preferred.
It's on my bucket list. I've never been able to manage it, but
yeah.
Has recording a weekly podcast about Spurs kind of changed your view and relationship with the club, do you feel?
Oh, that's a good question. I hope not. No, I mean, as I said, I still get incredibly upset when we don't win or we play badly. But last May was going to Bilbao was one of the greatest nights of my life. It was, and I'm sure other people who are lucky to be out there will agree with me. It was just an extraordinary night, awful game, but an incredible outpouring of joy and relief that we'd finally won another European trophy. And Bilbao's a lovely city, and coming out off, there's all these little bars opened up, and all the United fans just disappeared into the night, and it was just Spurs fans and bumping into people I hadn't seen for years in a foreign city was amazing. And you just go, we deserve more than this. We deserve more moments like this. We want these moments. The fact that we know we are such a massive club with incredible support from around the world. Us as fans, we deserve success. We do. Well, I'm not saying other clubs don't, other fans don't, but there's a particular dedication being a Tottenham fan. And I've always said, what's the one thing in life you want? I want to die seeing Tottenham win the title. That's the one thing that I've never seen. I can't imagine what mess I will be if we ever did it. And we've never really, I mean, everyone goes, oh, when Leicester won it, we dared to dream that season. I remember, I assume it was around Easter time, we went to Stoke. I think we beat them 4-0 or 4-1. We were imperious, absolutely brilliant. And I remember being in the pubs with friends that night going, you know what, we're playing well enough. We're playing well enough. We could do it. And obviously it never quite happened. We kept on playing catch up. We always seemed to be playing after Leicester played and whatever. That was one season. And then going back to the 80s, I think it was 83 under Shreve, when I think Everton won it. Again, that was a season where we were certainly good enough. And I think we lost at Goodison 2-0, 2-1, or maybe we didn't beat them at the lane. I remember Neville Southall, the goalie, pulling off a wonderful save. Those are the two moments that I think I kind of dared to dream we could actually do it, and I hope, I hope in ensuing years we get there again. We get that opportunity to think, oh no, we're challenging now. Wouldn't it be lovely to go down to a last game of the season whereby, I mean, we'll be in pieces. Can you imagine if Tottenham win this game? They are Premier League title. I mean, I don't know how we'd all deal with it.
I don't know how
we'd have to deal with it.
Scaling it up from the nerves that I had in the last 10 minutes of the Bilbao game. I worry about my own health.
I know. I wasn't down. I wasn't so down. I was lucky enough to go to the Madrid, the Champions League final.
Yeah.
People, what must be? No, because I couldn't believe we were there. It was such a novelty to walk through the streets of Madrid and see our, the cockerel everywhere, the flags and fans, and go, this isn't for us. We're not supposed to be in a place like this. Oh, we are. We're a big enough club, but that's kind of how we feel as fans after the years of nothing. And obviously Amsterdam was so incredible. And the fact that Liverpool didn't win the year before them won it, and, the whole Sissoko penalty so early on, you kind of had 90 minutes to realise we're not winning this, are we?
Yeah.
So I wasn't that crestfallen. I mean, I left the town a day earlier just because there was too many Scousers everywhere. But I didn't feel as down as I thought I would do. But just to think about now witnessing again the joy of winning European trophy after 41 years, and I watching grown men crying in the street, to go, wouldn't it be lovely to have a season where we are head and head with whoever and we actually win it? Would be incredible.
It'll come. Just gotta stay positive. I went back to the pre-Champions League Spurs Show game podcast, and it was an amazing listen. I did this for the show a few months back with a friend of mine, Neb. And it was just so incredible how I think you had a chap on from the Trust. He's now sadly no longer with us.
Martin Cloak, probably.
No,
Martin Cloak or Adam Powley, maybe.
I forget, but it was somebody.
Yeah,
but you were talking about places for fans to get together and sort of logistics on the ground almost at times. That was a really, I thought, unappreciated aspect of the Spurs Show's sort of fan-forward ethos. And I really, just talking about the Champions League.
And we were lucky. We did it. We did a live show there. We just found, again, through contacts, anyone know a bar that's not too far from the stadium, we can do that. We just found this really obscure, I think it was like a jazz club. And that was a funny story because some of the ex-players said, yeah, we'll do it. But we're on the official Tottenham trip. And you remember there was awful flights. Theo Delaney missed the whole of the first half. They got, was it Thomas Cook planes? Loads of people got stuck couldn't get there. It was like Planes, Trains and Automobiles, the movie. And then in the day, these Tottenham players, it was boiling hot. We're stuck at fan zone, the other side of town. The club won't let us go. And I suddenly realised we'd sold, I can't remember how many tickets, we sold out. And I suddenly realised I've got no guests. All the players can't do it. There's going to be riots here. And bless him, ex-goalkeeper Eric Torsvet came through. Yeah, I'll be there, Mike. I'll be there. And then there's an British actor called Stephen Mangan came along. Damien Camolio, ex-top sporting director, came along. Norman J, the DJ. And it was just such a lovely afternoon just to have a couple of hours before. Because if you're at a bar for so long worrying about the game that night, you're going to drink too much, just face down, whatever. It was nice to have a distraction for a couple of hours before you go, okay, let's head to the stadium. And it was a horrible experience getting to the stadium, coming out the stadium. The police were very violent. It was not a nice day, the rest of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember the reports from boots on the ground. UEFA handled it really badly. It was just a bit of a mess.
Yes, it was.
All right. So being mindful of your time, just last question. What advice would you have to an aspiring Spurs podcaster?
Oh, wow. No advice at all, really. If you want to do it, do it. As I said earlier, you might struggle to get listeners because there's so many out there. But I think, as you've already touched on in this show, if you had almost start as, you're part of a supporters club, maybe around the world, why don't I do a podcast ostensibly for that listenership? Because we kind of know each other anyway, little in jokes, and build it that way. That could be one angle. But look, the beauty of it that anyone can do them now from home means anyone can do it. But don't do it for the money. Don't do it. You think this is a great business idea? Because I'm telling you, not. Do it for the love. And if you can get a few people listening and whatever, then great. I mean, go ahead and do it. I mean, I'm amazed that there's so many, well over 100. I can't believe that. But as you said, they might find a niche. Well, I mean, you mentioned Gareth. Gareth's got a show coming out soon, looking at season by season type thing from the 90s, and that's what something. Actually, just reminds us because we talked about it earlier. We started last pre-season with Roy Beck, who's a Spurs historian, writing the history of Tottenham Hotspur, which Phil Cornwall's come back and narrating. So I think we've got to after World War II. There's been 6 shows so far, and I stupidly said, and then from the 50s we're going to go season by season, not realising more work for nothing, more work that I've got to find time to do and get no money for. So, yeah, maybe the next pre-season I'll have to find some much older than me people who remember the 50s. Norman Giller's someone who's been on the show a bit who, please God, will still be around and can remember stuff. But it'll be nice to get to more of the seasons where everyone kind of remembers them. And as I said, I did Gareth's show with Eric Torsfett about the 91 final. And then he showed me something else for another season he wants to do. And we got to go on next week. Who's just written a book about Bilbao and the build up to the final. And I just read his book because he's coming on next week. And again, this is only last season, remembering some of those awful games we sat through going, oh my God, I'd already erased that game from my memory. That defeat was awful and whatever. Oh, Liverpool second leg, Carling Cup. Oh my God.
Yep.
We went to such a... So you can easily do kind of season by season or looking at certain players. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't sort of stop anyone from going out and trying to do a podcast if that's something you feel you have to do.
Yeah, I have a very DIY punk sort of perspective on it. Just do it. Maybe people will like it. Maybe they won't. As long as you enjoy it. That's the
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if you go in and go, right, we need to get X amount of listeners, we need to get sponsors, and it is a lot of work. It does take up a lot of time, but just do it for the love. I mean, the fact that 19 years on, we're still doing the Spurs show every single week. There's times when you sort of having more than one host now kind of helps because I just think, I'm sick of my own voice and I'm going to be saying the same thing. You think you're going to be saying the same things and like becoming senile, he's telling the same story again or whatever. So you've got to be sort of mindful. I mean, the fact that you've actually bothered to dip back and listen to older shows, which I never listened back to and whatever, and I've no real reason to. I mean, occasionally I listen back, it's normally when an ex-player dies, and then we go, you know what, let's dig out the interview with him and put it back. People might not have heard his telling the story. They're the only ones I listen back to, to be honest.
God, it's so hard to hear your own voice. Like,
yes.
I do my own editing and it's awful.
Right. Well, I find it weird because you don't know what you sound like. And when I'm at Tottenham, less so now because you told me today there's 100 different podcasts, but I'll get people turning around, hearing my voice. I'm just chatting to someone. Oh, you Mike from the Spurs show, yeah? God, you recognise your voice. I thought I recognised that voice. That's really weird. Yeah, that's really weird. I mean, saying a lot of podcasts now do YouTube and Envision and whatever. So maybe they'll get recognised more and go on various shows. We've kind of, some people have said to us that we have a company that drops the dynamic ads in and, we're doing Envision now and with Spotify you go Envision. And I just think, do people really want to watch 4 middle-aged men on their computer talking? I still love that audio. You can be anywhere, walking the dog in the car and listening it. And I just think it's more work. I might have to edit some YouTube stuff and this and sign this up and do this. I just think, whatever. Maybe one day, but, we nearly did. We just tried to do it. We nearly did and might do again. Rav Singh, who's been on the show, not for a while actually, who lives in India. We did a pilot for the Indian Spurs show because I don't know the population of India, but it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, massive sports fans. And so we did a pilot with some Indian Spurs fans who were incredibly, actually one was more knowledgeable than even I was. And the idea was I did the first one and then it would become this Indian, just for an Indian market. I just thought, wow, because he was going, oh, you've got the numbers you'll get is far more than anything you get in the UK and in America. So maybe, you know, to doing these specialist regional shows for the Spurs Show could be quite funny.
A bunch of franchises, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or moaning in different languages about your club, you know.
Well, thank you for your time, Mike.
Absolute pleasure. It's been really
where
fun.
can people find you online if you want to be found?
Well, the Spurs Show is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, various others. Just Google it; we should come up. We have a Facebook group, which is very vociferous. Please join it, and if you want to, we're on X, Instagram, but I don't do that much on Instagram. All the details will be on the descriptions of the podcast. And again, we were doing these monthly live shows with ex-players, which we basically run out of players now. But we are doing, if you are in London, we are doing live screenings of all the away Champions League matches. So if you happen to be in London and go, where can I watch the game? Come down, and they're really nice nights and a really nice crowd. So maybe come along to that. And if you, as I said, if we do it and you have the opportunity to come to meet some of your heroes out in Portugal, that all the details are spursportugal.com for that event.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been a really, really fun episode. And thanks to everybody for listening. Please drop a like, follow, or comment wherever you get your podcasts. Share with your friends. Listen to the Spurs Show. Go to a live show. Go to Portugal. You can follow Poddenham Podspur on Bluesky at poddenhampodspur.bsky.social and keep listening to and making Spurs podcasts.